One day, while doing door-to-door market research, a guy knocks on a door and is greeted by a beautiful young housewife. He starts his pitch, inquiring about a petroleum jelly product to see how it's being used and by whom. "Hello," he begins. "I'm conducting some research for a petroleum jelly manufacturer. Have you ever used the product?" "Yes," she replies. "My husband and I use it during intercourse." The researcher is taken aback by her bluntness, but quickly regains his composure. "Well, I admire your honesty," he says, trying to recover. "Can you tell me exactly how you use it?" "Sure," she responds casually. "We put it on the doorknob so the kids can't get in." A female researcher was writing her thesis on the effects of long Army service on sexual function. In one of her initial meetings with veterans, some still serving, others honorably discharged, she decided to ask a delicate question. "Can you tell me, and don't be shy, when was the last time you had intercourse?" Most of the men mumbled some embarrassed response. Only one man, an older general, stood tall and said, "1956, ma'am." The researcher, taken aback, asked, "1956, that long ago?" "Yes, ma'am," he replied. Feeling sorry for the general, who was a good-looking gentleman despite his age, the woman decided to break his long, dry spell herself. She invited him to her apartment for dinner after the meeting. He agreed, and after a pleasant meal, the two made passionate love for an hour. Afterward, as they lay cuddling, the woman whispered, "Well, you sure haven't forgotten anything since 1956. The general looked at her confused and replied, "I sure hope not. It's only 11:30. In a small village, an elderly couple was famous for their incredible health. The husband was 102, the wife 98, yet both worked their farm daily with the energy of people half their age. One day, a curious visitor approached the old man who was chopping wood shirtless, his muscles glistening with sweat. "Sir, I heard you're 102, the visitor exclaimed. "That's right," the old man replied with a smile. "Incredible! You look amazing. What's your secret?" The old man chuckled. "Help me carry this wood home, and I'll tell you." Once inside, he explained, "I've been married for 75 years, and we made a deal early on. Whoever loses an argument has to run 5 kilometers. And well, let's just say I've been running nearly every day for 75 years. The visitor laughed. "That explains you. But how is your wife in such great shape, too?" The old man grinned. "Oh, she usually runs after me to make sure I don't stop." A burglar breaks into a house, holds the husband and wife at gunpoint, and ties them to chairs before methodically robbing the place. Once he's taken everything of value, he prepares to leave when the husband suddenly pleads, "Please, untie her. Let her go." The burglar shakes his head. "No way. The longer you're tied up, the longer it takes for the cops to be called. Don't worry. Your neighbors will notice something's off soon enough." But the husband keeps begging. "Please, I'm begging you. Just untie her. I'll do anything." The burglar hesitates, touched by his desperation. "Wow, you must really love your wife." The husband, now in a full panic, blurts out, "Love her? She's not home for another 15 minutes. I had lunch with 2 of my unmarried friends, one engaged, the other a mistress, while I, the third, have been married for over 20 years. We started talking about ways to spice things up and decided to surprise our men by greeting them at the door, wearing nothing but a black bra, stilettos, and a mask over our eyes. A few days later, we met again to share our experiences. The engaged friend said, "When my fiancé saw me in a black leather bodice, stilettos, and a mask, he gasped, 'You're the woman of my dreams.' Then we made passionate love all night." The mistress chimed in, "I did the same. I met my lover at his office, wearing only a trench coat over my lingerie and mask. When I opened it, he didn't say a word. He just started trembling, and we had wild love right there." Then it was my turn. Well, when my husband came home, I stood there in my black bra, stockings, stilettos, and mask. He took one look at me and said, "What's for dinner, Zorro?" Newly married Liam visits Father Charles and says, "Father, I need to talk to you." The priest nods. "Is it a confession, my son?" "No, Father. I just need some clarification." Father Charles leads Liam to his private chamber and says, "Go ahead, son." Liam sighs. "Why do women try to change men after marriage? My friends keep teasing me about it." The priest chuckles. "Ah, Liam, let me explain. When a bride walks down the aisle, three things captivate her: the altar, the choir, and the sound of the hymn. I'll alter him, I'll alter him, I'll alter him. By the time she reaches the groom, she's already thinking, I'll alter him." Jeff and his girlfriend Jenny decide to become bank robbers. Jenny handles the heists inside while Jeff waits outside as the getaway driver. They quickly gain notoriety, pulling off a string of successful robberies and becoming folk heroes until their luck runs out. At trial, Jenny is sentenced to 10 years, while Jeff gets 2. But due to a clerical error, their sentences are swapped. Jeff must serve 10 years while Jenny gets out in just 2. Despite her protests, Jeff convinces her to stay quiet. Jenny faithfully visits him every month, and they exchange letters and calls until, finally, after a full decade, Jeff is released. They reunite, get married, and leave their life of crime behind, raising a family and growing old together. At their 50th wedding anniversary, surrounded by family and friends, the conversation turns to the secrets of a lasting marriage. Someone asks Jenny, "Why did you stay with Jeff through all those tough years?" Jenny smiles and says, "Well, you just know you found the one when you finish each other's sentences." Margie and Sharon are chatting over coffee about their love lives. "I don't know what to do," sighs Margie. "I'm too shy to ask for it, and he never initiates." Sharon smirks. "Oh, I have a surefire way to get my husband started." "Really? Do tell," says Margie, intrigued. "I just slide my hand down his pants and say, 'My, aren't you cold in there? Could use some warming up. Works every time.'" Margie laughs. "You know what? I'll try that." A few days later, they meet again, but Margie looks furious. "You nearly got me divorced," she snaps. "What? How?" gasps Sharon. "Well, I did exactly what you said, but when I put my hand down his pants, it wasn't cold. It was already warm." Sharon blinks. "Okay, so..." Margie groans. "So, I asked my husband why his pants were warm and not cold like your husband's." A newlywed couple had only been married for 2 weeks, and while the husband was deeply in love, he was itching to hit the town with his old buddies. "Honey, I'll be right back," he said casually. "Where are you going, coochie coo?" his wife asked sweetly. "Just to the bar, pretty face. Gonna grab a beer." She smiled. "You want a beer, my love?" She opened the fridge, revealing 25 different brands from 12 countries. Germany, Holland, Japan, India, you name it. The husband hesitated. Yeah, lollipop, but..." At the bar, they have frozen glasses. Before he could finish, she pulled a massive beer mug from the freezer, so frosty she shivered just holding it. Now sweating, the husband tried again. "Yes, Tootsie Roll, but at the bar they have hors d'oeuvres, delicious little snacks, you know?" She grinned. "You want hors d'oeuvres, poochie poo." She opened the oven, revealing 5 trays of appetizers: chicken wings, pigs in blankets, stuffed mushrooms, pork strips, and more. Now desperate, he grasped at one last excuse. "But my sweet honey, at the bar, there's swearing, dirty words, and all that." Still smiling, she leaned in and purred. "You want dirty words, sweetie pie." Then her tone changed. "Drink your bloody beer in your damn frozen mug and eat your stupid snacks because you're married now and you're not going anywhere. Got it, moron?" And that's when he realized he wasn't just married. He was owned. A husband and wife were enjoying coffee in a New York cafe when the wife spotted a young woman at a nearby table wearing the most stunning pair of shoes. "Wow, those are gorgeous. I'd love to know where she got them," she said. "Maybe I should ask her." Her husband smiled. "Allow me, my love." The wife beamed. "What a gentleman. Thanks, sweetie." The husband strolled over to the woman and asked, "Excuse me, where did you get those shoes?" "Oh, just around the corner," she replied. "Nice. And how much were they?" "About $500. "Thanks for letting me know." He returned to his table and told his wife she got them in Los Angeles. They say women can be likened to countries as they age. Between 18 and 22, a woman is like Africa, half discovered, half wild, fertile, and naturally beautiful. Between 23 and 30, she's like the USA, well-developed and open to trade, especially for someone of real value. Between 31 and 35, she's like Spain, very hot, relaxed, and convinced of her own beauty. Between 36 and 40, she's like Greece, gently aging but still a warm and desirable place to visit. Between 41 and 50, she's like Great Britain, glorious with a rich, all-conquering past. Between 51 and 60, she's like France. She's been through a few battles but vows never to fight again. Between 61 and 70, she's like Canada, self-preserving but still open to meeting new people. After 70, she becomes Tibet, wildly beautiful with a mysterious past, the wisdom of the ages, and an adventurous spirit. As for men, between 1 and 100, a man is like Iran and Russia, ruled by a pair of nuts. An American man visits China, where he acts a bit promiscuous and doesn't use protection. A week after returning home, he wakes up to find his swimsuit area covered in bright green and purple spots. Horrified, he rushes to see a doctor. The doctor, never having seen anything like this, orders some tests and tells the man to come back in 2 days for the results. 2 days later, the doctor gives the grim news, "I'm afraid you've contracted Mongolian VD. It's extremely rare here in the U.S., and we don't know much about it." Perplexed, the man asks, "Well, can't you give me a shot or something to cure it?" The doctor shakes his head. "I'm afraid there's no cure. We'll have to amputate." The man gasps, "What? No way, I want a second opinion." The doctor replies, "It's your choice, but surgery is your only option." The man visits numerous doctors, but they all give him the same answer. The organ must be removed. One day, a friend says, "You got it in China, right? Why don't you try a Chinese doctor?" Desperate, the man goes to see a Chinese doctor. After examining him, the doctor says, "Ah, yes, Mongolian VD, very rare disease." The man, already knowing that, says, "Yes, but my American doctor wants to cut it off. What can you do?" The Chinese doctor shakes his head and laughs. "Stupid American doctors always want to operate for more money. No need to amputate." The man sighs in relief. "Thank you, doctor. So what should I do?" The Chinese doctor smiles. "Wait 2 weeks, it fall off by itself." A couple was having a heated argument while on their way to dinner at a restaurant. Just before they arrived, the wife said to her husband, "You're very lucky to have me. No other woman would want you." The husband, frustrated, decided to prove her wrong and find women who would be interested in him during dinner. As soon as they entered, the hostess greeted them with a big smile, laughed at the husband's jokes, and even offered to take his coat. The husband looked at his wife with a triumphant smile. "See, she's into me." His wife shot back, "Don't get too excited, it's just her job and she's married." The husband raised an eyebrow. "How do you know that?" "Because I saw the ring on her finger." Later, the husband went to the bathroom, and on his way back, he accidentally bumped into the chair of a woman sitting alone at a nearby table. He apologized, bought her a drink, chatted for a few minutes, and then sat back down with his wife. "Well, she invited me for a drink," he said proudly. His wife rolled her eyes. "Don't get too excited. She's probably half blind." The husband was taken aback. "How do you know that?" "Because I saw her come in with a walking stick." A little while later, the waitress came to take their order, and it was obvious she was flirting with the husband. "See, I told you. There are normal women who want me," the husband said, grinning. His wife replied dryly, "Don't be an idiot. She has corona." The husband stared at her, puzzled. "How do you know that?" His wife smirked. "Because if she's interested in you, she must have lost her sense of taste." A wealthy man had been having an affair with an Italian woman. One night, during one of their secret rendezvous, she confided in him that she was pregnant. Fearing the consequences of ruining his reputation and his marriage, he offered her a large sum of money to go to Italy and have the child. He also promised to send child support until the child turned 18. To keep everything discreet, he told her to send him a postcard once the baby was born with just the word spaghetti written on the back. This way, he would know when the baby arrived, and he could begin sending the child support. Months passed, and one day the husband returned home to find his wife holding a postcard. "Honey," she said, "You received a very strange postcard today." He quickly replied, "Oh, just give it to me, and I'll explain later." She handed it to him, and as he read the postcard, his face turned pale, and he immediately fainted. Alarmed, his wife picked up the card from the floor and read aloud, "Spaghetti, spaghetti, spaghetti, 2 with meatballs, 1 without." One day, an old man went to see a doctor for some health advice. After a thorough checkup, the doctor recommended an unusual remedy. You need to drink a young woman's milk for your treatment. Determined to get better, the old man went out and, after some effort, managed to convince a woman to help him. As he sat down to drink the milk, the woman, seeing his seriousness, decided to be generous. With a smile, she said, "If you need anything else, just let me know." The old man, thinking for a moment, looked up and said, "Well, some cookies would really go great with this." When I got home last night, my wife demanded I take her somewhere expensive, so I took her to a gas station, and that's when the fight started. After retiring, I went to apply for Social Security. The clerk asked for my ID, but I had forgotten my wallet. She said, "Unbutton your shirt." I did, revealing my silver chest hair. "That's proof enough," she said, approving my application. Excited, I told my wife about it. She said, "You should have dropped your pants. You might have qualified for disability, too." And that's when the fight started. At my high school reunion, I kept staring at a drunk woman swigging her drink alone. My wife asked, "Do you know her?" "Yeah," I sighed. "She's my ex. I heard she started drinking right after we broke up and hasn't been sober since." My wife took a sip of her drink and said, "Wow, who knew someone could celebrate that long?" And that's when the fight started. I took my wife to a restaurant. The waiter took my order first. "I'll have the strip steak, medium rare, please." He asked, "Aren't you worried about the mad cow?" "Nah, she can order for herself." And that's when the fight started. My wife stood nude in front of the mirror and groaned, "I feel horrible. Old, fat, and ugly. I need you to say something nice." I replied, "Well, your eyesight's perfect." And that's when the fight started. I tried to talk my wife into buying a case of beer for $14.95. Instead, she bought a jar of cold cream for $7.95. I told her the beer would make her look better at night than the cold cream. And that's when the fight started. My wife asked if a dress made her butt look big. I said, "Not as much as the one you wore yesterday." And that's when the fight started. A couple was sound asleep when suddenly, at 3 a.m., a loud noise came from outside. The woman jumped up and yelled, "Oh no, that must be my husband." Her lover panicked, leaped out the window, crashed into a bush, and sprinted to his car. A few minutes later, he stormed back inside and yelled, "I'm your husband." She shrugged. "Then why were you running?" And that's when the fight started. Saturday morning, I got up early, dressed quietly, grabbed my lunch and the dog, and slipped into the garage to go fishing. Just as I backed out, a torrential downpour started. The wind was howling, so I pulled back in, undressed, and climbed back into bed. I snuggled up to my wife and whispered, "The weather's awful out there." She mumbled, "Yeah. Can you believe my idiot husband is out fishing in this?" And that's when the fight started. I asked my wife, "Where do you want to go for our anniversary?" She smiled sweetly and said, "Somewhere I haven't been in a long time." So I said, "How about the kitchen?" And that's when the fight started. My wife and I were watching Who Wants to Be a Millionaire in bed. I turned to her and asked, "Want to have sex?" "No," she replied. "Is that your final answer?" I asked. Without looking up, she said, "Yes." So I said, "Then I'd like to phone a friend." And that's when the fight started. An elderly man was concerned that his wife was losing her hearing. So he called her doctor to make an appointment for a hearing test. The doctor suggested a simple test to get a rough idea before the appointment. "Here's what you do," the doctor said. "Start about 40 feet away from her and speak in a normal conversational tone. If she doesn't respond, move closer by 10 feet and keep asking the same question until she hears you." That evening, the man decided to give it a try. His wife was in the kitchen and he was in the living room. He thought to himself, "Let's start with 40 feet. "Honey, what's for dinner?" he asked. No response. So he moved to the next room about 30 feet away. "Honey, what's for dinner?" Still no response. He tried again, moving to 20 feet. "Honey, what's for dinner?" No answer. Then he stood at the kitchen door just 10 feet away. "Honey, what's for dinner?" No response. Frustrated, he walked right up behind her and shouted, "Honey, what's for dinner?" His wife spins around and yells, "Chicken, chicken, for the 5th time we're having chicken!" A traveler once visited a small village in the countryside. At the local bar, someone asked him if he was married. "I'm divorced, actually. Never could find a woman I didn't end up fighting with," he replied. The local man, nodding knowingly, said, "Then you should visit the old couple who live on the hill outside the village. It's said they've been married over 60 years and have never had a single fight." "Impossible!" the traveler exclaimed. "Everyone fights. How could that be true?" The local man swore it was, and the traveler decided to check it out. The next morning, he made his way to the house on the hill, where he was warmly greeted by the old man. After a cup of tea, the traveler explained why he'd come. "I heard you've been married for over 60 years and never had a single fight. Is that really true?" he asked. The old man smiled, nodding slowly. "Yes, it's true. We've never fought once, but let me tell you how it all started. Please, I'm dying to know," the traveler urged. "Well, it all began right after our wedding," the old man began. "We were riding our mule back to town, and while walking it down the street, it tripped over a stone. My wife immediately said, 'That's one.' We continued on, and the mule tripped over another stone. Without missing a beat, my wife said, 'That's two.' Just a couple of minutes later, the mule tripped again, and this time my wife pulled out a gun I didn't even know she had and shot the mule right between the eyes." The traveler's eyes widened. "What did you do?" "I was stunned. I shouted, 'What are you doing? That was our mule. You just killed it.'" I couldn't believe it. The old man paused for effect, then added, "My wife turned to me, looked me dead in the eyes, and said, 'That's one.'" The traveler was silent for a moment, then asked in awe, "And you never fought after that?" The old man smiled again. "Not once. That's how we've been married for over 60 years without a fight." A man walked into a restaurant with a full-grown ostrich behind him. As he sat down, the waitress came over to take their orders. "I'll have a hamburger, fries, and a Coke," said the man. Then he turned to the ostrich and asked, "What's yours?" "I'll have the same," said the ostrich. A short time later, the waitress returned with the order and said, "That will be $6.40, please." The man reached into his pocket and pulled out the exact change. The next day, the man and the ostrich came in again. The man ordered, "I'll have a hamburger, fries, and a Coke," and the ostrich said, "I'll have the same." Once again, the man reached into his pocket and paid with exact change. This became a daily routine. Then one evening, they entered again. The waitress greeted them. "The usual?" "No, it's Friday night. I'll have a steak, baked potato, and salad," said the man. "Same for me," said the ostrich. A short time later, the waitress came with the order and said, "That will be $12.62. Once again, the man pulled the exact change out of his pocket and placed it on the table. The waitress, unable to hold back her curiosity any longer, asked, "Excuse me, sir, how do you always come up with the exact change every time?" The man smiled and explained, "Well, several years ago, I was cleaning my attic when I found an old lamp. When I rubbed it, a genie appeared and offered me 2 wishes. My first wish was that whenever I needed to pay for anything, I could just reach into my pocket and have the exact change." "That's brilliant," the waitress exclaimed. "Most people would wish for a fortune, but you'll always have exactly what you need." "That's right," said the man. "Whether it's a gallon of milk or a Rolls Royce, the exact money is always there." The waitress was still curious. "One more thing, sir. What's with the ostrich?" The man sighed, paused, and replied, "My second wish was for a tall chick with long legs who agrees with everything I say." A tourist and his guide were walking along a trail when suddenly the guide runs up the hillside to a cave, yells, "Woo-woo!" listens for a moment, and then dashes into the cave, stripping off his clothes on the way. About 15 minutes later, he returns, fully clothed. This happens a few more times, and the tourist finally asks the guide about this strange behavior. The guide explains, "When a young lady in our town is in the mood, she goes into a cave. If she hears woo-woo, she responds with a woo-woo of her own, signaling she's ready and willing. No one knows who is who, and everyone's happy." The tourist is intrigued and asks if he can try the custom. The guide agrees, so at the next cave, the tourist runs up, yells, "Whoa, woo," and hears a seductive "woo, woo" reply from the depths of the cave. Ecstatic, he strips off his clothes, rushes into the cave, and gets run over by a train. A butcher is shooing a dog out of his shop when he notices $10 and a note in the dog's mouth. "10 lamb chops, please." Amazed, he takes the money, bags up the chops, and follows the dog. The dog waits at a traffic light, looks both ways, and trots across the road to a bus stop. The dog checks the timetable, sits on the bench, and when a bus arrives, he walks around to the front, looks at the number, and boards. The butcher is stunned and follows him onto the bus. As the bus travels through the suburbs, the dog takes in the sights. After a while, the dog stands on his back paws to press the stop button. The butcher, still in disbelief, follows the dog off the bus. The dog runs up to a house, drops the bag of lamb chops on the stoop, then starts banging his body against the door. He repeats this several times, then jumps on the garden wall, walks around, bumps his head against a window, and then waits at the front door. A large man opens the door, sees the dog, and starts yelling and hitting him. The butcher rushes up and shouts, "What the heck are you doing? This dog is a genius." The man responds, "Genius? No way. It's the second time this week he's forgotten his key." An American automobile company and a Japanese auto company decided to have a competitive boat race on the Detroit River. Both teams trained hard, but the Japanese team ended up winning by a mile. Discouraged by the crushing defeat, the American team decided they needed to figure out what went wrong. A continuous measurable improvement team of executives was assembled to investigate. After extensive analysis, the team concluded that the Japanese team had 8 people rowing and 1 person steering, whereas the American team had 1 person rowing and 8 people steering. The American Corporate Steering Committee immediately hired a consulting firm to study their management structure. After months of study and billions of dollars spent, the consulting firm concluded the problem is that too many people were steering and not enough were rowing. To fix this, they restructured the management team. 4 steering managers, 3 area steering managers, and 1 staff steering manager were added. They also introduced a new performance system for the lone rower, with incentives to make him work harder and become a Six Sigma performer. They decided to empower and enrich him. The next year, the Japanese team won by 2 miles. In response, the American corporation laid off the rower for poor performance, sold all the paddles, canceled all capital investments in new equipment, halted the development of a new canoe, awarded high-performance bonuses to the consulting firm, and distributed the money saved as bonuses to the senior executives. 2 sophomores at Duke University who were doing well in their organic chemistry class had a solid A going into the final. The weekend before the exam, they decided to drive up to the University of Virginia for a party. They had a great time but stayed later than planned and didn't return to Duke until early Monday morning. They missed the final exam, so they explained their situation to Professor Aldrich. They had a flat tire on the way back, no spare, and couldn't get help for hours. Professor Aldrich, thinking it over, agreed to let them take the final the next day. The 2 were relieved, studied that night, and showed up the next day ready to go. The professor seated them in separate rooms, handed each a test booklet, and told them to begin. The first question was easy, something about free radical formation worth 5 points. They answered it, then turned the page. To their surprise, the next question was worth 95 points and said, "Which tire?" The chairman of the board, looking for a change, hires a new CEO known for making tough decisions. On his first day, the new CEO is determined to shake things up and show that no one is safe. The chairman gives him a tour of the company, and the CEO spots a guy casually leaning against a wall, clearly doing nothing. Thinking this is his chance to make a strong impression, the CEO marches over to him and demands, "How much do you make a week?" The worker replies, "I make $500 a week. Why?" Without hesitation, the CEO hands the guy $500 in cash and yells, "Here's a week's pay. Now get out and don't come back." Feeling confident, the CEO turns to the rest of the workers and says, "Now, does anyone want to tell me what that slacker was doing here?" The room falls silent as everyone nervously looks around. Finally, one brave soul raises his hand. "Yes?" the CEO asks. The worker replies, "Pizza delivery man, sir."